Hey there, this is Natalie, and this video is going to be something a bit different. But first, a bit of background on that. You see, as you may or may not know, I have a new channel where I narrate and comment on interesting stories from Reddit. I've been working really hard over the last month to get that channel to meet the monetization requirements of 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time, with the watch time being the harder one this time around. Though I did hit the 4,000 hours requirement yesterday, so the channel should be monetized very soon, and I'll no longer be making all of that content for no money. I'm not kidding, I have about 40 videos on there, all over 20 minutes long, that I posted in August, and that's why there hasn't been much new on this channel in that time. Now, that channel is going to start earning, which I really need it to, because my financial struggles got so bad that I'm currently staying with my dad out in the middle of nowhere and trying to get enough money together to get back to having my own place. Having reached the initial monetization targets, I can now move to a consistent daily upload schedule over on the new channel, rather than just putting out as many videos as I could, and so I'll have more time to be writing scripted videos for this channel too. Though, of course, I won't actually receive any payments from the new channel until at least October, so I'm quite far off from being in a better financial situation. This means, as has always been the case unfortunately in my recent videos, I have to ask that if you can afford it and want to help a now actually stray cat girl out, then please consider supporting me via Ko-fi or Patreon. You now get the full audiobook versions of some of my reading content, including a 7.5-hour audiobook of Old Dragon's Tale, just for visiting my Ko-fi page, even if you don't donate, and that's just as a thank you. I'll also be adding the story I'm currently doing a reading series of on here, which is the Mushoku Tensei side story Tale of the Heirloom Sword, once all of the parts have been recorded. I have a lot of stuff I'd like to do ahead of ReZero Season 3, as well as more Mushoku Tensei stuff, so I'm definitely not moving away from the anime channel. I just wanted to have a more mainstream channel too, where I could consistently produce good content without all of the writing and research involved in my videos on here, so that things could be a bit more stable for me. But that leads me to this video, because while I'm picking out stories to use on my new channel, sometimes I come across something I know my audience on here would appreciate, but a non-anime fan specific audience would probably not really get at all. And so I decided to make a video in the style of my new channel, but with stories focused on anime and anime fans particularly. I think the stories are fun, but it can also give you an idea of what my other channel is like, if you were thinking of checking it out. Though of course the intros on there are much shorter and less explainy. If you like the stories, then let me know, and I'll do another volume of anime Reddit stories over on here, without all of this channel and personal update stuff at the beginning. There are surprisingly quite a lot of stories that would fit out there on Reddit. So, let's begin. So this story is titled, Am I the Butthole for Wanting to Name Our Son Kazuma, from an anime. And it was posted to r/amIthebutthole by user ThrowRA Kazuma Kid. So he very much created a user account just to post this gem. And he begins, My wife wanted to give our upcoming son a unique name. She kept suggesting things like Tycephorus and Raprelta. I suggested the name Kazuma after Kazuma Sato, the main protagonist of the anime Konosuba. I picked that name because I think the character is someone I want my son to be like when he grows up. My wife, not knowing where the name came from, fell in love with it and told all of our family we were naming our baby Kazuma. All was well until I was watching some Konosuba in the living room and one of the characters, Megumin, said, "Kazuma, Kazuma." She had a look of horror after hearing that and immediately googled Kazuma and found out he's from an anime. She was furious and said, "How could you not tell me?" I told her that Konosuba was a light novel before it was an anime, and many famous names have come from books, like Alice. Therefore, it's not at all strange to name our son after a character from a book. After that, she seems to have calmed down, but is still upset that I didn't tell her before she told all our family, and now wants to pick a different name. Am I the butthole? Well, first of all, this could well just be someone, joking. But on my Reddit channel, I do like to take the approach of treating all the stories as if they're true, just because it's a bit more interesting to discuss them as real situations rather than just being some kind of internet cynic and saying that everything's just done for karma. So if we take this one as true, the name Kazuma is just a normal Japanese name, so while he was inspired by Kazuma Sato, there's no reason for him to be going through life being someone who was named after an anime character if that's not the way the wife wants to see it. I would have said he was named after Kazuma Kiryu from the Yakuza games, because he is probably a better role model if you're trying to pitch it to your wife that you want your son to grow up to be like him. But either way, Kazuma isn't some unique made-up name that only the character from Konosuba has. Now, some might say that if the child isn't in any way of Japanese origin, then it's kind of weird and kind of weebish for you to name them with a Japanese name. People have different opinions on that, but while I probably wouldn't do it myself, unless I happened to live in Japan and the child was going to be raised along with other Japanese children, so I wanted to give them a name that would fit in, I don't really think it's that bad. How many people do you know who are named Irish names without being in any way Irish? Things like Connor, which people just pick because they like them quite often. As for his point about names coming from books, he's not wrong, that has happened. For instance, there is no record of anybody ever being named Wendy before the book Peter Pan came out. And then of course you get the ridiculous ones like people naming their babies Khaleesi as of Game of Thrones, even though Khaleesi was not anybody's name in the series. But the example he gave of Alice from, I guess, Alice in Wonderland isn't really the example he's thinking of, because Alice was just a name given to the character because it was already a name that people had. Still, I'd say if the wife was already happy with the name Kazuma before she saw any episodes of Konosuba, if she knows that it's really just a normal Japanese man's name, and nobody in the family needs to know about Kazuma Sato, then there's no reason not to just keep on with it. And then they can have another baby, and hopefully it'll be a girl, and they can name it La Latina. But still, what's your verdict on this one? Let me know down in the comments. Here we have one from r/am I the butthole, posted by user Throwaway Body Pillow. And it's entitled, Am I the butthole for not wanting to get rid of the anime body pillow that saved my marriage? And OP begins. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. My husband and I are best friends during the day. Love of my life. It's at night that it's an issue. I'm a blanket stealer. I once yanked them so hard, poor hubby flipped a full 180. Hubby, for his part, is a thrasher. Bruce Lee would be jealous of the moves he pulls off while unconscious. It's a constant war between us when we fall asleep, and both of us often wake up sore and exhausted. It was starting to affect our relationship. Neither of us wanted to move to a separate bed because we like spending our nights together, but it seemed like an inevitability. We were both crabby every morning, and we started fighting as soon as we got up. It sucked, but neither of us wanted to concede defeat and move to the other bed. Quick background. I was a huge nerd as a teenager. Full on otaku. Go ahead, cringe, I do too. One night, as a joke, I brought down an old anime body pillow from the attic. I know, the cringe. And plopped it down between my husband and I, declaring it our demilitarized zone. Hubby also thought it was hilarious, and we named her DMZ-chan. She stayed there the whole night. It was a game changer. DMZ-chan protected me from hubby's REM-induced rampages, and she's just heavy enough that I can't yank the blankets at full speed. DMZ-chan is now a beloved part of our nightly routine. We both thought it was the funniest thing, but she legitimately helped us solve the only real issue in our marriage. One day, mother-in-law stopped by to pick something up. She got up to use the restroom, passing by our open bedroom door. You can guess what she saw. DMZ-chan propped up in the middle of our bed, her giant soulful anime eyes looking right back at mother-in-law. When she got back, she quickly grabbed her stuff and left. Hubby and I were just confused. She later mentioned DMZ-chan to hubby while they were on the phone, and it absolutely mortified him. As far as I know, mother-in-law now thinks we're deviants in a three-way relationship with a body pillow. Hubby was too embarrassed to explain, and now he wants to put DMZ-chan back in the attic. I was upset. I told him I didn't want to go back to boxing each other each night, and that DMZ-chan helped us so much in that. He agreed, but suggested we get a normal, plain body pillowcase to replace her. I felt like there was no need to spend money on something we already have, and if it was really that big of an issue, we can put her in the closet while we have company over. Hubby is firm in that she has to go permanently. I know he's embarrassed, but I feel we shouldn't have to compromise our inside jokes to appease other people. Am I the butthole? And there's an edit with an update to this one. And I'm really hoping she doesn't keep saying the word hubby because I'm giving myself the ick repeating that. And she says, "Sweet bees, this blew up. Was not expecting all the attention. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone for chiming in. I admit I was being stubborn. I drove over to Target on my lunch break and bought a new cover for $10. I put it on DMZ-chan as soon as I got home. To those asking, I did wash her after fishing her out of the attic. And I'm now waiting on hubby to get home so I can apologise for making him uncomfortable. DMZ-chan shall still live on in our hearts and under the blanket when company's over." She replaced her waifu with a plain cover from Target. Well, anything to keep the peace, I guess. But that is not how I would have handled that. I would have had a whole cast of body pillow chans waiting to meet mother-in-law next time she came over. Have them all sitting at the dining table like they're having a little tea party. But what do you guys think? If you were the husband and your mother-in-law noticed that you and your wife had a big old anime body pillow in the middle of your bed and started asking questions, what would you do? Obviously, in this case, they literally were just using it as a piece of furniture to make their sleeping more comfortable. But I just think it would be funny to make the mother think something even more deviant was going on than she already did. Let me know what you would do down in the comments. Now here's one of those stories where you have to question whether or not the punishment outweighs the crime. It was posted by user Pariel on r/amIthebutthole. And yes, I know it's not really butthole, I just don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. This one is titled, "Am I the butthole for threatening to spoil the next season of my roommate's favourite anime if he doesn't start paying his share of the rent?" And OP begins. "I live with a roommate, Dan. We split the rent 50-50. Both of us work in tech and share a love for anime. Last winter, we watched a series called Apothecary Diaries together, which Dan became deeply invested in. He bought merchandise, set his PC background to the main character, and even started planning a cosplay. Dan was laid off in December and struggled with depression, often citing the anime as his sole source of comfort. When a second season was announced, he was ecstatic and frequently rewatched the series. Since December, Dan has been unable to secure a new job in software engineering. He managed to pay rent up to March, but asked me to cover April, promising to repay me once he found employment. April turned into May and now June, and I've been covering his rent for 3 months. I've reached my limit and told Dan he needs to pay his share and reimburse me. He argued that his full-time job search, lack of a computer science degree, and the current tech hiring freeze were significant hurdles and he needed more time. Back to the anime part. I'm able to read Japanese and Dan isn't. Since finishing the Apothecary Diaries anime in March, I've read the source material. It's free online in Japanese, and I'm caught up to the latest chapter, so I know what will happen next season. I asked if he wanted to know, and he told me not to tell him, so he won't be spoiled. On June the 8th, we got into another argument, and in the heat of the moment, I threatened to spoil the next season if he didn't get a job that month. He got very upset, yelling at me and accusing me of trying to sabotage his career. I stood firm, insisting he needs to start contributing financially. This confrontation seemed to push him into action. He started doing Uber Eats the following week and began working at a fast food restaurant on Monday. While I'm glad he's earning money again, this new job keeps him away from his computer, limiting his job applications. Our interactions have become tense, and I can sense his resentment. Today I caught him mouthing "butthole" when he thought I wasn't looking. I've covered nearly $5,000 in rent for him, which I feel was more than generous. However, I do feel bad about threatening to ruin something that brought him joy and helped manage his depression. Am I the butthole for using spoilers as leverage to get Dan to fulfill his financial obligations? It's kind of weird to me that someone would be that deeply into a series and not want to go and read the source material. But I know some people do, care more about the anime itself and the show than about knowing what happens in the story, so they're happy to wait for a new season rather than get ahead by reading manga or light novels, which perhaps they just don't enjoy doing as much. It's reasonable. I also know people, kind of vary a lot in terms of how much they do or do not want spoilers. For some people, spoiling a series that they're really looking forward to can be really taking a lot of the enjoyment out of it, whereas for other people, spoilers are something they actively seek out. I know this for sure because otherwise, the most popular videos on my channel wouldn't be ones where I spoil Mushoku Tensei. And I would say I'm someone who I like to seek out spoilers because I usually get more excited about watching the thing if I know for sure there's going to be some really cool stuff in it. Naturally, there are some things where spoilers do ruin it completely, like if there's a major twist, or if it's a mystery and someone spoils what the answer to the mystery is. But things like which characters will get together with which other characters, or, fights that are upcoming, conflicts that are going to be resolved in certain ways, if I know about them in advance, sometimes that just makes me really a lot more excited to see them happen on screen. Or may even be what gets me to watch a show in the first place. But I might well be a freak. Still, in this situation, it is clear that something needed to be done to motivate this guy to start, paying his share of the rent in some way. It sounds like him going straight into kind of filling all his time with fast food work or, doing stuff like Uber Eats, which you'd have to do most of the time, I would assume, to make a living amount of money, is stopping him from throwing himself into applying for the kind of jobs he really wants and should be doing. So I can see his point that it is affecting his career prospects. But OP's already fronted so much money for him, and the situation could go on indefinitely if he didn't make some kind of ultimatum. Threatening the spoilers as a way of motivating him, I don't think that's a butthole thing to do. It's a lot better than threatening to kick him out. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Now, this one is entitled, "Am I the butthole for letting my niece watch anime?" And it was posted by a throwaway account to r/amIthebutthole. And it begins. Bit weird, I know, but to put into perspective, I'm a lot younger than my siblings. I'm 22 and male, if that helps, while my siblings are 37 and 40. My sister, the 37-year-old one, has 4 kids, 3 boys and 1 girl. Let's focus on the girl and call her Lexi. Now she's 12 and she walks home from school most days. And since my place is on the way home from her school, she stops by often so she can do all her schoolwork in a lot more quiet environment. Well, my place has a lot of anime posters, as I'm a big anime fan myself. And since I know one of my nephews is as well, I figured it was fine when Lexi asked if she could watch My Hero Academia. Turns out she loves it, and I gave her a froppy jacket for her birthday, which she loves. Now, here comes the problem. My sister confronted me, asking me why Lexi is into this type of stuff now. I replied that she asked me to watch some anime, and I figured it would be fine, since she let James, my nephew, watch it too. My sister got upset, saying that she saw anime as a thing that was directed towards boys, and it wasn't something for girls. Then she went on to say that I have to stop letting Lexi watch anime at my place. I reluctantly agreed, as it is her child after all. However, I gave Lexi the info on how to watch it online, which she was happy and grateful for. So now I ask, am I the butthole for doing this? I feel since it's only a problem for my sister because Lexi is a girl, I'm not doing anything wrong. Plus, it's just anime, and not even the heavy fan service anime. But I leave the judgment up to you. Nah, yeah, this sister, she's definitely some kind of normie. There's nothing in My Hero Academia that wouldn't be appropriate for a 12-year-old girl. I mean, that would be right within the target audience of it in Japan. Although it's shonen, you know, shonen is kind of unisex at that sort of level. I've said that before, you know, although shonen does mean young boys, it's not stuff that's exclusively interesting to young boys. It's stuff that's mainly interesting to kids around that age, but isn't specifically stuff that girls tend not to like. As opposed to shoujo, which tends to be stuff that only girls particularly like. So that's why it's the young girls audience market. Maybe My Hero Academia is slightly more popular with boys than girls, but it really isn't one of those where there's anything at all unusual about showing it to a girl. Not that there's any reason why boys or girls can't just like whatever they like, but liking a series like that is, you know, not even particularly tomboyish. It's no different from liking Marvel movies, if you stick to Western stuff. I mean, he could educate his sister a bit, maybe show her some magical girl stuff, and that there really is anime that is very much designed for girls, and anime itself isn't a boys thing. But if someone's lame enough to have those kind of views on what their children should be watching based on their gender, you're probably not going to change their minds just by educating them a bit about what kind of stuff the Japanese anime industry produces. I think he did the right thing to avoid any conflict by just telling Lexi how she can find anime for herself to watch. And now she knows that, she's probably going to end up watching a load of stuff that isn't age appropriate. The result her mother probably wouldn't be able to predict, given she probably thinks all anime is for children. And it all ends up worse than if she just let her brother choose which shows to introduce Lexi to. But she'll still probably grow up just fine. I don't know, what do you guys think? If you were trying to introduce your niece or nephew to anime and you found things that you thought would be suitable for them, that they'd enjoy, they really, you know, fell in love with the shows, and then their parent told you that you'd made a mistake by showing them those things, and demanded you stopped doing it, what would your reaction be? Let me know down in the comments. So that's all the stories for this video, but if you like this type of video, then please check out my new channel, Natalie Narrates. There is a link in the description, but also let me know in the comments if you'd like more anime Reddit stories on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.